doing the podcast earlier, and your son goes, I want to do the snap, and that way Daddy will be done.
That's hilarious. That kid's been around too many YouTube videos. Wow.
He was like, I want to do it like Millennial Farmer and just snap, and he's done. It doesn't work like that, bud.
Sadly, if life worked that way, it'd be a lot easier. That path that we made would have been a lot easier to make. Just done.
Yeah. Oh.
Anyways, this is the Better Together podcast. My name is Justin.
And I'm LaBre.
That is not the way that I expected the beginning of this podcast to go, but not a bad place.
Hey, I got you there. And it's a little new because I started it.
I know what I'm saying. I just I was like, I could start saying something else, or I could just let this go. I just let it go.
Hopefully he chills out on it and doesn't keep yelling.
Yeah, I think he's done now, thankfully. But no, that's hilarious. We definitely has been around too many YouTube videos made / watched and things like that. So, wow.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just a few too many where you go, boop, and it's done.
Well, anyways, I was going to just talk about our trip that we took this weekend. My opening was just going to be like, it's interesting to think about how, you'll do stuff and you feel like you didn't do that much. But then when you start talking about what you did, you're like, wow, I did a lot of stuff.
Yeah. That happens quite frequently with us. We're like, we really didn't get much done. And then you start listing off everything you did. You're like, oh, maybe I did do a lot.
Yeah. Well, I started the video that we made with it off. I was like, this is either going to be miserable or awesome. And we kind of experienced the gambit.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a great trip. We went camping. We went to a park called Edgar Evans. If you are in Tennessee, it's like in the middle of Tennessee, so anybody can go.
Yeah.
You just got to drive towards the middle, and you'll eventually get there.
Yeah.
It was a super cool park. At that park, you camp on a porch, which always sounds kind of weird, but literally it's like a giant porch that's built out over the hill there.
Mm-hmm. I am a little jealous that I did not get to participate in camping on the porch because we've seen stuff about that for years.
Yeah.
So.
You would have enjoyed aspects of it, but you would have hated the first night.
Yes.
So it's better that you weren't there. You're a camper person.
Yeah.
Even if it's the small camper,
mm-hmm.
my dream camper is a very small camper that has an air conditioner. Mm-hmm. I don't need a TV. I don't need a slide out. I don't need a bathroom.
My dream camper is one with an air conditioner.
That's what I'm saying. Like I just need, for me, I just need a small box with an air conditioner, and that would have made the weekend even better. Because that's really what the bad part was. But Edgar Evans, you camp on a porch, which sounds kind of weird, but what it is that they've built these things out because it's so hilly where they have the campground that
mm-hmm.
you couldn't have normal campsite. They had to bring in so much dirt. And it's weird though, like what you see camped on a porch. Like there's pictures online, if you look it up, there's like Class A motorhomes, like the
mm-hmm.
full-size rigs that have been backed in there. I don't know how they backed them in there because none of the sites seemed very easy to actually get into.
Yeah.
But they were there. So.
And then you have tents too.
Yeah, like people are doing tents. And when they do tents, they basically just nail into the platform, I guess.
Which also doesn't seem safe because then there's nails protruding.
I think they rip. No, it's just the head of a nail, and then they take them out whenever they leave. Just like you take your stakes
mm-hmm.
out for your tent. But it was something. But the first night we got there, like the weather was weird all week, and it was like it might rain, it may not rain. Blah, blah, blah. Well, Friday it rained, but it was we got our fire going, and that was like the part that our son looked forward the most. He's like, I'm looking forward to the fire.
This kid loves a fire.
And we get it going. I think all kids love a fire.
Mm-hmm.
And even adults like campfires.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, he's just been pushing, though, for even our propane fire pit to be functional again.
Well, he got roasted marshmallows. I get it. But we built the fire. We got it going. It takes a minute every time.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I start to try to cook hot dogs over it, rain. And thankfully, it was like a light rain, so I set the skewer of the hot dogs over in a way that they can cook over the fire. And I'm putting all of our stuff under the awning that I had made out of a tarp off the van, and trying to make sure everything's right. So then I get the hot dogs. Once we get under the tarp, then it really rains. After we get eating our food, and then it's well, now I guess we just go to bed. Thankfully, there was a short break in the rain. We were sitting under the tarp, we eat our food, we hang out for a while, and then it stops raining. So I've got time to actually get situated, and then we get into the van because that's where we decided to sleep in. We didn't take a tent, and so I wanted to sleep in the van and see what that would be like. Mm-hmm. And I think it would just depend on the situation.
Yeah,
we'll get to that in a minute. But it was just miserably hot in there, and it was only 70-something degrees. But it was trying to get that flow And the problem is, like, you can only have one window open.
Yeah.
And so, like, there was the window where the awning was. And so you don't have, like, a flow of air. You just have that one window where you're trying to suck some air in.
Mm-hmm.
As it went later in the night, it got better. It didn't help that I had to set up the whole inside to sleep in after, like, right before we got in.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm sweating when we get in there. It was just a mess. It was just like, oh, and it made me think, like, man, I wish I had a tent. But then it would have sucked for the rain.
Yeah.
And I've learned that, like, any weird thing when I'm asleep, I don't like. Like, I don't like certain noises. And so, like,
you don't like any repetitive noise, really.
and just in general, let's be honest. I don't like repetitive noise in general. Like, I can enjoy the rain when I'm awake, but what happened is it rained, and I don't know when it stopped raining because, honestly, I thought it was still raining when I got out in the morning, and then it turned out that it was just, like, the leaves dropping water on you. But that noise in the middle of the night would wake me up. It's like a dripping faucet.
Yeah.
Almost. And it was like, okay, this is a lot. And so
sensory overload.
Yeah, it would wake me up. And so, like, I got up at, like, I'm so confused. I hate time zone changes. And I don't know if I'm the only person. Like, you think time changes are hard, but then you drive 2 hours to get in a different time zone, and then you have, like, I'm not going to change my watch for 3 days.
Yeah.
Like, it's not worth it to me. And I don't wear a smartwatch. And so I'm like, I'm not changing my watch, but then my phone's one time, my watch is another time, the car is a different time. It's like, I'm so confused.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what time I actually woke up. It was either 6 or 7. I don't know. And I get out, and I was able to actually get out of the van without waking our son up, which I thought was an accomplishment.
That is a huge accomplishment because he sleeps alone in the dark with his sound machine.
Yeah.
So having slept with another person in this space, first off, was a miracle.
Yeah.
And then you're able to sneak out without him waking and
probably
stirring.
Slept for like another hour or 2.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly, but like.
But it helps that it was in that early time frame because normally you can make a bit of noise in that time frame if you're home and he's fine. You get into that 7 to 8 o'clock and past 8, you make any noise and he wakes up.
You know what's funny? I didn't tell you. I just remembered. Is like during the week or the weekends, he doesn't wake up until you start cooking.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't start cooking, but I opened the pack of donuts that he wanted.
And
he woke up.
Food. Yep, it's food.
But I had to eat. I took my medicine, so I opened the thing and like all of a sudden he's awake. It's like, what in the world, dude? Some chocolate donuts wake you up.
Listen, any sort of food once it's prepared or puts out a smell, that kid will wake up.
Yeah. But then, like, you get up and he's, like, ready to go, you
Always.
know? And that's where the tent would have come in handy. So what it is about, like, the van, and I think it would be, like, it doesn't matter how you, like, if you had a Class A motorhome, if you have the smaller driving ones, if you have a van, if you have a converted school bus, all of the things that I've thought were cool in the past because I hate towing trailers, you can't leave camp and go do stuff easily, especially where we were at. Even if you had an electric bicycle, this camp is 6,000 acres.
Yeah.
And so it's like once you turn, you go through an intersection, and once you go through this last intersection, you were in the park. And once you were in the park, from that last stop sign that you go through, it's about 9 minutes of driving to the campground. And in that time, you pass the park like visitor center, and you pass everything. You pass the park visitor center, you pass the marina, you pass the boat ramp turnoff that turns to some of the trails. And so if you were to try to go back on a bicycle, even an electric one, you can't do 30 mile an hour.
Yeah.
You know, so it's going to take you forever to get anywhere. And so it was just one of those, this campground specifically. Now, we've been at other places before, like when we stayed at Tim's Ford, where I was able to walk to a lot of different places. You know, we all could have, but I did a lot of hiking while we were there by myself, and because he was even younger then. He was like
during
2.
nap times and things,
And so I would go hiking and stuff by myself, and you could walk a lot of places. And so if we had had that opportunity, it would have been a little different. There was one trail that we could walk to, but by the time you walked to it, you probably already walked, a quarter mile.
Yeah.
And then so that's a half-mile round trip with a 4-year-old. So like you're kind of getting close to your max already. But the dude loves to hike, though, so. But you just couldn't leave. And so that was the thing about the van where it might change. Or maybe if you just had a better figured out sleeping solution. Or maybe if it was one person. I don't know. But it was just that whole trying to get going. You had to pack everything up pretty much. Because I don't know why it's different. But like if you had a tent, you could leave some stuff in there. Maybe not like your camera or your
Mhm.
iPad,
I
but
guess because people would assume that someone could still be sleeping in there. Like,
maybe.
you never know, like, if
Yeah,
someone is actually in the tent.
you just feel more comfortable with it though. Like
Yeah.
and like leaving your cooking stuff. And like honestly, the black tote that I had, like if somebody stole the stuff out of it, it would just be a bad day. It's
Yeah.
not a big deal. But it was just one of those things where it's like I don't want to just leave everything out here. Now I ended up leaving like the chairs and our table and our
Mhm.
water sitting there with the
Yeah.
tarp. But I was like, I'm not gonna leave everything I have for camping just
Yeah.
sitting out here. And so it was just you had to go anywhere, you had to pack the whole thing up, and then when you got back, you had to undo it.
Mhm.
And so like I get to having the base camp
Yeah.
and even having the trailer where like you just unhook it, you leave it there, and then you can drive around. Because like
Mhm.
having a camper van sounds great, but I'm the kind of person when we go on vacation, like if I'm going to Florida, I am going to the house first.
Yes.
And I'm gonna go to the house, I'm gonna unload, I'm gonna get things set up, and then we're gonna probably go out for dinner or
Yeah.
something.
Mhm.
Now I don't know if normal people do that. I don't know what the
It
normal.
seems normal for us, but
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't. We're different though. Like I'm weird about things. Like I told the campground lady, she's like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, you don't have to check in really anymore, but some people will stop and try to figure out where their campsite is." And I said, "No, no, no, no. I'm wound far too tight for that." I
Yeah.
said, "I knew exactly where I was going before I got here."
Mhm. I knew exactly where I was going before I booked the site.
Well, that was true, and that was lucky because that state park is different than a lot of state parks, and so they have street view for the whole campground, and a lot of state parks don't have that.
That was
And so I
such a
could
blessing.
drive through, and I figured out because I thought there's loops at a campground, and so I
Mhm.
thought that maybe if I stayed in this one, this one was closer to that. But what I realized is, oh, this one's actually closer to the bathroom and the playground.
Which is
Then
perfect when you're taking a child.
yeah, but then what even the park map showed, the park map
Mhm.
was a little off on where their drawings were,
Mhm.
and so seeing it on Street View, I was like, oh, that's great. This is the one that I want.
Yeah.
Worked out perfect. We didn't even have neighbors on either side of us. It was a great time to go because the weather could potentially be bad.
Which deterred a lot of
And
people.
when I say bad, not dangerous,
Yeah, just
but just
poor
rainy,
weather.
sad weather.
Mhm.
And so whether you don't really want to be outside in. But
Yeah.
Saturday turned out perfect. It was kind of misty in the morning, but it
Mhm.
was fine.
Yeah, the pictures from your hikes and stuff, like, that was awesome. Everything was nice, bright, lush, green, and
Yeah.
it didn't seem like things were too wet
No, it was kind of
still.
muddy in some places. The rocks were wet and he
Yeah.
kept falling all over the place. Got super muddy. I was like, we should have brought more clothes. But the thing about that
Next time
part
we
too,
know.
though, is this is what I talked to about because we went to another town called Smithville.
Mhm.
Great town, highly recommend it. Lovely people. But I was talking to a lady in that store and I was like, it's actually really pretty here.
Mhm.
And what it is though is that it's so different. And Tennessee, I don't know what it is about Tennessee. If
We
it's
have such varying landscapes across the state.
We really do. And she was like, well, you live in East Tennessee. It's really beautiful there. And I'm like, it is, but it's just different here. And the only thing I could liken it to, and I've never been there, but I watched enough videos of people like in the Pacific Northwest where you're in
Mhm.
those like rainforests and there's just moss and ferns and all this weird green undergrowth and trees that
Mhm.
shouldn't be there because there's no sun.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's no sun because there couldn't be this much moss. So I don't
Mhm.
know how this stuff's growing. But it was just really neat to
Yeah.
look at it. And so, like, I highly recommend going there just for that. And a lot of
Mhm.
the forests, I don't know how long they've been protected, but it was like old growth forest. I mean, some of these trees were huge. I mean, absolutely massive. And I've learned that I'm old now enough to where I really like trees. I'm like, man, that's a nice tree. I feel like
Listen.
Donkey, but with trees. Like, I look at trees, I'm like, man, look at that. I've got 2 videos now where I'm like talking about how great trees are.
Listen, our kid must have just been born old because he came out wanting to hug every tree that we
Yeah, that
passed
was
on a
funny.
hike.
He was a tree hugger. He literally, like as a kid, he would like be in the carrier and you would go by and he wants to like grab a hold of the tree, not to stop you or anything like that, but he literally just wanted to touch the
Yeah.
trees.
And, like, I would seriously have to stop because he's yanking on them, like, in the carrier while we're hiking, and he's, like, yanking out, leaning way far this way and that way at, like, 1 years old,
Yeah,
like, begging to hug a tree, so I'd have to stop every now and then and be like, "Alright, here's your touch, get you a good hug,
yeah.
whatever you need."
It was just hilarious, and he's not as crazy about that now. He did learn that, and he didn't. Well, he struggled to learn part of it, but he learned that a thin tree you can shake, obviously,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But he learned that if he shook the trees at that time, it would
Water.
cause water to fall on you. And I didn't want the cold water falling on me. But then we went hiking again the next day and he tried that. I'm like, buddy, it hasn't rained. There's no water left on the trees.
Good try, bud. Good
Yeah.
try.
But it was a great time, and it's one of those things where it's like, it's a mixed bag, like, it's a little bit of a sacrifice, like, obviously you weren't there, but it was good for us to get some
Mhm.
memories to ourselves and, like, have a thing that
Yeah.
we've gone and done. Now, the sweetest thing that he said the whole time, though, was that he was talking about camping, and I was like, "So you gonna wanna go again?" And he's like, "Well, mommies can go camping sometimes too, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, bud, mom can go," because we were, like, making it up as this being a boys' trip.
Mhm.
And the real reason we wanted to do it is obviously he's got a sister coming in the summer, and I was like, I wanna take him somewhere. Originally, I was gonna take him, like, an Airbnb or something, but the
Mhm.
truth of the matter is COVID just ruined our world. And it's not
Yes.
that I couldn't afford it,
Oh.
but you vote with your dollars, right?
Yep.
And I couldn't do it. I can't stay for
Mhm.
somewhere for 3 nights and spend almost what I've spent for a full week somewhere, even after COVID.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not spending $700 for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so I can go camping, $70. $75 was what I paid for the campsite. It was a
Mhm.
great campsite. I had water, I had power. I ran an extension cord into the van.
Mhm.
That was the other thing. The next night was great. It was great. I bought this fan, and if you have a van and you're gonna sleep in it, just an FYI, they sell window fans at Walmart that you put in, like, your car or your house window, and they can fit in your minivan window, and it works
Just
great.
just so you
And
know.
if you're at a powered campsite, you might as well use it. And so
Mhm.
that's what I did. I had the extension cord running through the van, and there's even a cutout in that. I don't
Mhm.
know why. Honest to goodness, I can't figure out why they put a cutout in the bottom of it, but
Mhm.
there's a cutout in the bottom of it, and I just ran my extension cord underneath that, and I had power. I had a bug net over the windows so I could have the windows down and have no problems,
Mhm.
and it didn't rain the second night, so I had full ventilation in those. It was wonderful.
Mhm.
Highly recommend. But uh, moving forward, things are definitely gonna have to change. But the thing that got me still, that's hard on me, is like I really enjoy the idea of camping. I would like to do more camping,
Mhm.
but the problem is that campers are expensive,
Yeah.
and he really enjoyed camping and
Yeah.
is like wanting to go back. It's like that's a different style of trip. Like staying in the cabin's one thing, but
Mhm.
like camping's different
Yeah.
than that. And I would really like to be able to go camping whenever I want to.
Yeah.
And you can't do that in a tent or in a van
No.
even, because it's either gonna be caught. Wow, it's either
Cold
gonna
and
be
hot.
cold or hot. It's gonna be caught. And but it's either gonna be one of the 2, and so I don't really wanna go and sweat to death. I mean,
Mhm.
it was hot at 75
Yeah.
degrees, so I don't
I would not have been able to
95
sleep.
is not gonna be well, it wasn't 75 at night, you know,
Yeah, but
but it hits you funny. I don't know, it's just
mhm.
weird. But so what's it gonna be like when it's 90 outside? Like, you want an air conditioner,
Yep.
and especially, like, where we live, like, spring's kinda cool, but I mean, that's kinda funny. I didn't mean cool temperature-wise, but
Spring is neat.
spring is a good time of year,
Mhm.
and so is the fall, but it's so hit and miss on temperatures. And our real
And it's
spring
so hit and miss on what the weather's actually gonna do.
that's true. With spring especially, like, it could
Ugh.
rain, it could not. It was supposed to rain all this week, it's not hardly rained at all.
Mhm.
But the thing about it is that, like, it's such a great time for weather potentially,
Mhm.
but it's such a short window. Like,
Yeah.
people talk about, like, "Well, in Tennessee, we have 4 seasons," and I'm like, "I
We have 4 seasons in a week.
well, yes, that's 100% the truth, but the thing is, it's like,
We just don't know how long each of them are gonna
in
last.
January, you might get, like, one random weekend that's 70 degrees, and then all
Mhm.
of a sudden, it's, like, negative again, and then all of a sudden, it's April, and it's kinda nice, and then all of a sudden, it's just summer,
Yep.
and then it goes into fall, and then all of a sudden, it's just winter, like,
Mhm.
they seem like it's, like, our spring and fall now seem like 2 weeks.
Yeah. It's such a short window for those, and, like, people think of fall and all the leaves, pretty colors on the trees, some falling. Yeah, we get, like, 1 weekend
Yeah,
where the leaves are changed and on the trees,
yeah,
and then they're gone,
but I did the
all on the
math,
ground.
right, of, like, a camper.
Mhm.
And I was thinking like a $6,000 camper,
Yeah.
which is super cheap. Like you can't
Mhm.
hardly even get a camper for $6,000, even the tiny little baby ones that we like.
Yep.
But I looked at that and then I said, okay, if you just say your average night in a campground is $40,
Mhm.
right? So I think I somehow got to where like,
It was gonna be $20
and we looked at a
or
hotel.
20
So we
visits.
thought about a hotel room being like about
Mhm.
$150 a night. And so then you take the 40 from that, leaves you 110. 110 goes into 6,000 about 20 times.
Mhm.
And
So
so
so you'd have to take 20 trips
you'd have to take, well, no, it
because
was
it
30.
was
It was 30, so it goes into that 30
yeah.
times, was what I think what the math that I had was, and you would have to take, uh, 20 trips to equal that out or something like that. It
Yeah.
was something ridiculous. And I'm like, well, that's
At the
half the
end,
year.
it was 20 trips you had to take.
Yeah. And that's half the year.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't take every weekend pretty much going on a trip. So then it's like, and I realized you'd own it for several years, but my mind doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Like,
we want to recoup that as best as possible within the year.
Yeah. And so that was like, man, I don't know what I would do here then.
Mm.
But I don't know. I really enjoyed it though. And I think that he had a great time. And it was just one of those good bonding things.
Yeah, I really missed y'all. And it
I
doesn't
know.
help being, pregnant and hormonal because that was not fun. But I did have a good time with some other moms and stuff while y'all were gone. And it was just miserable at night. So the first night's sleep was fine. Like that was okay. But then the second night I was sad that y'all were gone so long and I did not sleep.
Yeah. I slept better the second night, and that was mainly because I did not sleep well the first night, and we did a ton on that second day.
Exhaustion and cooler temperature.
Yeah, we hiked a bunch, and then we went to town, and then we came back.
You did like 2 hikes that day, right?
Yeah, we did 2 trails in the morning, which were about a mile, which isn't a ton, but when you're also like trying to wrangle a child, it's one thing. And then we went to town and walked around there a bunch, and like bought you your Mother's Day present, bought my mom something. And then we had to go to Walmart and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get back to the campground, and we got back kind of early, but I wanted to because my goal was to get the campsite set up before I had to actually get in it to get ready for bed.
Yeah, that way you could cool off before you
I
have
didn't
to
want to
be
hot.
stuck in there.
And so I did all that, and then we're just sitting there, and I'm like, I kind of want to relax. Like the birds are singing, I'm in the forest, this is fun. And then he's like, I gotta do something. And so like we went to the playground for a little bit, and then we came back. And I'm like hanging out, just relaxing. And then he's like kind of getting stirred again. And I'm like, all right, we're going to go walk around. And so like we went and walked down the campground past the Boy Scouts, which was crazy. I told you about like they had one whole campsite, one whole porch dedicated
just
for food. They had like a pantry and different pop-up like
How
tents.
many Boy Scouts were there?
I only saw like 7 little brown tents. So I mean, it wasn't a ton of people.
I just would have expected more.
Unless like there were some other people down from them that I don't know if they were all together or not. It was hard to tell because they weren't all in their uniforms at that time. They didn't wear their uniforms until the next day.
Gotcha.
But I don't know. It was just funny though, like that they had that. But then we kept walking down and went on this one trail, hiked about half of it because I knew we wouldn't make it the whole way. And I was like, buddy, it's about to get dark and you wanted a fire. We got to get going. And so then we went around the rest of the loop. We looped back. We didn't go back the same way we came, but looped back on the RV loop. And what's funny about that is there's a camper company called, it's not Shasta. It was something else. But it's like they make these little fiberglass campers that are really cute and just convenient. And I was like, buddy, now that would be a nice camper. And I'd been telling him like why I didn't really want a camper, like you got to tow it and then you got to back it in and all these things. And so I'm like, that would be a nice camper. And he's like, yeah, but you'd have to tow it and back it in. And I'm like, man, you pick up on everything. Yeah, that was funny.
He's learned to give that response back to you because I have to remind you of things like that. Like,
yeah.
You don't really want that.
But there's not another option. I can't afford the nice van. Mama's not going to go in a tent.
No.
And she doesn't want us to go without her. So there's got to be a solution found. And so it's either
borrow a friend's camper.
That's a big camper. I'm not into that. That's not a little camper. Listen. And also, I don't borrow things that cost that much. That's the key. If you told me like, hey, drive their car, well, at least I've got car insurance. I don't have camper insurance. I don't know what happens.
Yeah.
Like if you're towing it and something happens to their camper, like, do I have to pay for this now? Like I am not walking down that road. There may be people that will, but I'm not. Like I wouldn't borrow somebody's boat. I wouldn't borrow, like, the only one, I don't know. I might, if you.
Do they have camper insurance? Because then we could rent it from them.
I don't know. But if it was, like, say that it was like somebody had a boat on the lake, I might
then you don't have to
consider
take it
borrowing
anywhere.
it. Because you're going to be pretty safe on the water. But otherwise, like, I'm not borrowing your stuff. Like, I don't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
Unless it's something that's that I can afford to replace. A shovel,
We've had
a
to do
paper
that.
towel. I don't know, something cheap. But otherwise, I don't want to do that.
A little Hot Wheels car.
Yeah, I'll borrow your Hot Wheels Lamborghini, but I'm not driving your real one. I'm not crazy. My insurance can't cover the fender on that thing. But no, I wouldn't borrow somebody's camper, I don't think. I would go camping with somebody,
Yeah.
but then that's just a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
And it would be a different experience in that case than if we all just went camping
Yeah.
together.
Which, though the family that friends of ours that have the camper, they do want to all go camping with us,
Which is fine.
So we're totally making that happen. It's going to be an adventure for me, but we'll make it happen.
But I'm just saying, like, for you to like get the full real experience of camping, because they don't camp like I would camp.
Yeah.
Anyways, and it's nothing against them, but it's just like I'm a lot more basic.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like to go do stuff.
Yeah. Which I think though that friend has learned with you.
No, yeah, he's fine now.
So now all is good. You just had to go through that trial basis that first time.
Yeah.
And figure out each other.
Well, and I want to figure out like some good campgrounds to go to. A guy I work with, he's going to Fall Creek Falls like next week or the end of this week. I don't really remember.
Sometime.
But I'll be interested to hear about that. I did find out, because I told you that I was looking at those campsites. They were like $90 for the 2 nights. But it's because the ones that were left available were the ones with sewer. And so it's like $44 a site. And there are $31 sites there that are just water and electric. So that's good to know.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to go there. Fall Creek Falls is an amazing state park in Tennessee. It's the most visited state park in Tennessee. And it is by far the most built up. Like, it's got the most buildings and activities and stuff. Like, there's outdoor stores in the park and stuff. It's really neat. But I want to I'll be honest with you, like, that's part of what really would push me to get a camper, and just a little one still, but like some kind of little camper
to hit up all the state parks,
especially the ones like West Tennessee. And like, I don't really want to go to Memphis, and I don't know I had to look into like what's the surroundings of Memphis like. Are they just as sketchy, or is it just in that city? But
is it the city itself, or is it the suburbs?
But there's a lot in West Tennessee that I'm not seeing, and really, what's crazy is that because of how Tennessee's shaped, to get to the furthest park, it's like 2 hours from here, and that's not like, it's over 2 hours. That's not the best day trip.
Yeah.
And so like having a camper would make that a lot easier. But again, I don't even want like a 20-footer. It's just a pain. And then like if you think about gas and stuff like that, like just does not sound fun.
Yeah, because our friend was gonna come camping with you potentially, but then he started doing the math on taking his camper up there, plus the site and everything. He's like, I can't justify spending that much money right now.
Well, he had gone camping the week before.
Yeah.
Like, he had just gone camping the weekend before with his dad.
And he had all been for like, well, if you want to go camping, I'll just take my stuff and we'll use your spot, and that's how we'll have, covered it. But you had already invested in camping stuff for the van and outfitting that. So like, it didn't make sense to throw away all that money, basically.
Yeah. I think it worked out like it needed to. So that way, me and our son could have a good time and really just be one-on-one.
Yeah, have that bonding time.
But it's funny, like, you dream up things in your mind of, like, it's going to be this great and stuff, because everybody's a philosopher now.
Yeah.
So, like, you go on YouTube, and, like, all these people are like, oh, it was just such a different experience to be able, blah, blah, blah. And, like, in your mind, you start to build up, like, oh, wow, it could really be something.
Listen, if you guys want to really hear someone be philosophical in their videos, watch, is it Trout and Coffee?
Yeah.
That guy
is something else.
Yeah. And he's got the great voice for it.
He does a good job. It's just like, okay, this is
like,
too much.
All right, let's back it up a little.
It's a little too out there for me. But I mean, like, everybody's like that. Like, oh, it was such a great time to just get out with the kids, and we really connected. And I'm like, well, the dude's 4, so we connected as much as we could. He was most excited about, like, watching How to Train Your Dragon that night, or watching, the thing. And I was very purposeful. And so like the first night, I think we probably got in the van maybe like somewhere between 8 and 9. It was very early, but we didn't have much of an option.
Yeah.
Like, it was like sit here,
the rain and all
kind of get rained on, and like, because I put the chairs in the van that night. The next night, I wasn't worried about it because it wasn't raining. But that night, I was like, I want these put up because I don't want them getting soaked, and we can't use them the rest of the trip. And so it's not like we could just sit there and like hang out in the rain or whatever. And so we had to get in earlier. And so like we watched probably a little bit more shows that night. But then the next day, like, as soon as he got up, we started doing stuff, cooking and getting things ready, and he's playing, and then we went and did stuff all day. We came back. I didn't put a show on or anything like that. Like, we just hung out. I think I put something on my phone for a second that wasn't kid related. It was like something that I would want to watch just so that maybe I could relax a couple minutes longer, but it didn't work because it wasn't a him show. And so, like, but we didn't get into bed that time until about like 9.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, he was like, getting to watch his movie,
Mm-hmm.
and I let him watch like an episode of Batman or something.
Yeah.
I fell asleep, and that's when I was like, okay, we need to go to bed.
We got to wrap this up.
But then in the morning, the next day, I was like, you can watch SpongeBob, dude. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you watch some SpongeBob, and I'll like be cooking and getting everything packed up. And that's because we went to Burgess Falls,
Mm-hmm.
and highly, highly, highly recommend that. You got to go at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the state parks in Tennessee. And I know that, like, who knows how many people from Tennessee listen to this or who many people are even going to listen to this. But
if you're coming to Tennessee,
this is a great podcast for you. Maybe we should just, like, we should work out some deal with the state parks. We'll be your podcasters.
Hey, if someone from the state parks finds us, hit us up.
I'd like to just do it for them, like the Tennessee State Park podcast. And then you just, like, talk about state parks. But the thing about...
as long as they cover the camp fee or the...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Just let me come. And
yeah, just let me come. And then when we got you, we will talk you up.
I might not be the best at video production, but the podcast I think I can do okay at.
Yeah.
And I can definitely talk up some stuff. But Burgess Falls is absolutely amazing. It's a great place. Now, it is one of the state parks, like I was going to say, that on the website warns you that it's a highly visited state park and that if you don't see parking, please leave. Don't park on the grass and the sides of the road and stuff. And I can definitely see how that could happen. Now, when I pulled in, I didn't see they do have an overflow lot.
Oh.
Kind of like outside of where you pull in because I haven't looked at the map to see how the park's laid out, but it's not an expansive park. It seems like a long, narrow park because it runs the side of the river. But there's the one parking lot you pull into, and that would fill up very quickly. And then there's a slightly bigger lot over to the side that people can park in. And it was fairly busy the day we went, but there was still a lot of open parking spots. I'd say it was about like half as busy as it could be. And the nice thing is that, like, we hiked the real trail, and it's hard. It's only like 0.75 miles. I don't know if that was round trip or all the way. It almost feels like it was round trip because it did not take as long as I thought it should to get 0.75 miles.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's almost a mile.
Yeah.
So that should take about, on pavement, you're looking at walking slow, so his speed may be like 15 minutes. It felt like 15 minutes to get there, and it was treacherous.
Yeah.
Like, and you're going up these big stairs and stuff like that. By the end of it,
kudos to the 4-year-old for doing it.
he did amazing, and I made sure to tell him. And by the end of it, you could tell like he was struggling to climb the stairs and stuff as easy. Though when we got to the playground, he was revived.
Of course.
But what was nice about doing that trail is that a lot of people don't want to do that trail. And there's an ADA trail, and there is an ADA trail. But what it is it's a sidewalk that takes you to one overlook, and I think you get to see Middle Falls from a little bit higher up and further back than where you see it on the other trail. But Middle Falls is not the nicest fall. It might not even have been Middle Falls. It might have been like that one of the first cascades. I can't remember. But it doesn't take you all the way to Burgess Falls. That's what you have to realize is they say there's an ADA trail, but it does not take you all the way to Burgess Falls. It's just once it goes off that sidewalk, it turns into a gravel road. Now, if you have mobility issues like you can't climb stairs or maneuver rocks, you'll be fine. But if you're in a wheelchair, it's going to be a lot more of a challenge to get over there. And then still to get from that trail down onto the overlook, it goes back into like a rooty trail. Not bad enough to where you couldn't walk. Even if you have mobility issues, I think you could do it.
Yeah.
But if you're in a wheelchair, I don't know if you could do that. And so that was kind of annoying, I think, if you showed up thinking the whole thing was ADA and then you didn't even get to go all the way. But there is an easy way to go see three views of waterfalls. You get to see the first one, and then you can go on the gravel trail. And that one you could even do in a wheelchair, I think. And you can go to Middle Falls, and then you can go all the way back to Burgess Falls. And it is crazy. It's not the biggest waterfall, because the biggest waterfall on this side of the Mississippi is Fall Creek Falls. Now, that's a man-made waterfall, for those of you who don't know. And they control how much water's coming through it based on how they let the dam run through. But it's a very narrow fall.
Yeah.
Like it's a light water that kind of runs down it. But this fall is very wide and still very tall. And so you're definitely going to want to check out our video. It's going to be a few weeks before that one comes out from the recording of this podcast. But I think it's going to be a pretty good one, and you'll have some good visuals of Burgess Falls. I didn't edit an intro for that. I may just like make one later, and we might split it. Just depends on how it looks in the thing. But either way, we're gonna have some videos coming out about that. And Burgess Falls was an absolutely amazing place. Like I would definitely go back, and definitely want you to go back.
Yeah.
Because you just get to see so many different waterfalls. You get to go along the river. You wouldn't have been able to do the other trail right now because you get a little winded, obviously, from carrying a person.
Yeah.
And having your cavities full.
Being about 6 months pregnant now, I mean, things are getting a little tough.
Yeah. Well, you're just like, that's what I thought. Like you can't do what you could do normally, right? Just because your body's in an odd place.
Not that I'm not going to try if you put me in the situation.
That one would not have been good for you. Even though the 4-year-old did it, like you would have been winded. And
I just would have had to go really slow.
But you can go all the way to the, it sounds like I was going to say the bottom, because you're up high above the waterfall at the overlook, but then you can walk down and be on basically the top of the waterfall. And you could just, just walk out and go over if you wanted to. Like, it's crazy. I was trying to explain it to our son, and I don't think he understood it. But I'm like, buddy, you see where the water's like getting real white right there? That's the edge of the waterfall.
That's what we were looking up at.
That's what we were looking at.
Down.
And then we went back up because we didn't actually go on the overlook because it was busy at that point. So we went back up, and I'm telling him, I'm like, that's the part that's where we were at, buddy. And I still don't know if he got it or not. But then I saw while we were up there, there's 2 people paddleboarded up to the waterfall.
Gosh.
Well, the other way.
Okay.
So, like, below it. And I'm like, we took the wrong vessel. That is the way to do it. I'd rather do a kayak. I've never done a paddleboard. But I would love to kayak up through that river and be at the base of the falls because it looked epic. And I've got that on the video. I got a clip of it. So that's definitely something to check out. The link will be in the description for the vlog channel. You should check out all the videos. Like, subscribe, comment on all of them. Share them with your friends. All those great things.
All the good things. Subscribe. Give us some love on there.
Yeah.
We're
Help
working
us to
hard.
Grow. So that way I can, do that all the time.
Yeah. And again, state parks.
Yeah. But it was an awesome, awesome place. And that's the thing about it. Like, when you get into an area where there's like a state park, chances are you're not far from another state park. And so I would like to figure that out. Like, because
a lot of times we can throw a rock to a state park.
Yeah. Well, what it is though is that there's some state parks that don't have campgrounds, and so like there's some that are just tiny.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't even think like there would be much of a state park, and then there's a state park there, and I'd like to go to all of them.
Yeah.
Given the opportunity, I may not be able to go to all the national parks, but I can definitely make it work to where I can go to all these state parks. And the truth of the matter is there are some amazing things in this state that you're not going to see in other places.
Yeah.
The Twin Arches are not going to be seen somewhere else. You see some similar stuff in like Utah, but you know what they don't have there? Trees.
Yep.
They don't have trees.
We got tons of them here.
Yeah.
And they're growing off of the arches.
Yeah, you have a crazy rock formation and trees. But then, like, there's all the different kinds of water that you see. Where we were staying at Edgar Evans is where the Caney Fork River is, and they've made a big thing about kayaking that or canoeing it. And I was like, man, I kind of wish I could do that.
You could have strapped one on top.
I could have taken but they do you would get dropped at the mouth of the dam or the bottom of the dam, and then you would float the river, and then they would like bring you back.
Oh, that's
and so that's what I want to do. That way I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. But so you have to rent their kayaks?
You don't have to, but I probably would just because it'd be easier. You don't have to worry about it. They've got nice big Hobie kayaks and stuff at this one place. So I was like, it's better than what I've got.
Do they got tandem ones?
I don't know. I can't remember. I didn't look at them.
Because this is stuff I need to know.
I know. But it was a great place. You can just call them. But
I gotta plan this out. I got little Munchkin here and little Munchkin there.
He's about ready for his own kayak. Just tow him around or something. He'll be on a river.
I'm not ready for that.
But it would be really cool to be able to go back and do that river float and stuff like that. So I definitely want to go back to this park. We didn't even fish. I had all the fishing stuff with me, but like we were hiking and doing things, and I was
There's
like,
just too many activities to like stop and linger for fishing.
This is the first state park that I've been to though, where people bring their boats and park them in the campsite and camp in a tent so that they can take their boat out on the lake. I thought that was crazy. There was probably there had to be 5 people at the campground that were like that, and it wasn't a busy time at the campground. So you got to think that's like fairly normal.
Lot.
There'd be more people sometimes. So there was some people there with a bass boat, and they were literally there for Friday into Saturday. So they came with a bass boat just to do that the one day.
That's crazy.
But I'm sure they had a great time. It was a cool looking lake.
Yeah.
I
am sad that I missed out on it, but I look forward to watching the video, and I'm so happy that you had this time together, especially before little girl arrives.
I think it's important to try to do stuff like that, and it's a hard thing to do and a hard way to find time. But I think especially now that we'll have 2 kids, we'll have multiples, then there'll be times where you need to go on just a trip with him, and I need to go just on a trip with her,
Mhm.
or and vice versa, and like we all need to go on trips together. But there's things that can only happen when it's one-on-one
Yeah.
and relying on each other.
Mhm.
And there's those like it was nice because when he was younger and it would be me and him just out for the day, I
Mhm.
would get called mommy all the time. And you know what I didn't get called at all this trip? Mommy. It was great. But then there were things that like that do get annoying because you're
Mhm.
the only one,
Yeah.
right? And I didn't really get annoyed by getting asked for things. And he's
Mhm.
at a point now where like,
He can do stuff.
especially with me,
Yeah.
he doesn't like ask for too much, and I can
Mhm.
ask him to do things, and he does it. I was like, hey buddy, can you go get the mustard out of the cooler? And he's like, yeah, and he runs over there and like
Mhm.
it's helping. It's great. But the one thing that got me is like, especially by the end of it, he wanted to hold my hand more, but he's like holding just my fingers still, and he was pulling so hard. I thought he was gonna rip my finger off. I was like, I'm done, buddy. You've got to stop holding on to my finger. I said, you can walk by
Mm.
yourself, because like sometimes we'd be on like a trail, and he's trying to hold
Yeah.
my hand, and I'm like, no, 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 we're good.
It's because when we're out in public, I make him have contact with me because we're out in public.
No, I get it. Like if we
Like,
were at the mall,
we're places where people could snatch.
when we went to the mall, just me
So,
and him for around Christmas time to
mhm.
buy presents and stuff. That's exactly what we did. Is like I had him hold my
Yeah.
hand and things like that.
So it's just what he's used to. He's like, okay, we're out in public. We need to hold hands and keep together. But, like, there's a line when you're out in the wild.
Okay, it's not a big of a deal.
It's
Well, it
not.
was really
There's
like
not as many people around.
when
No
we
one's gonna
crossed the
like run
road
up
and
and
stuff.
snatch you.
Yeah, and we crossed the road and stuff. I'd have him hold my hand and
Yeah.
things like that. But it was just like those little things. Um, yeah, it was funny. I told you I was like, there's things that you'll never even know from this trip because there's things that I'll never remember to tell you. Just like there's so much to
Mhm.
talk about.
You'll
But it
just
was
have
absolutely
things
amazing.
randomly hit you at 2 a.m, and you're like, I have to tell you.
But the thing is like I think it's different when you're. I don't know what it is. Something about when you're in that camping vibe and you're
Yeah.
not like in the hotel or in the
Mhm.
house with all the different stuff. It changes the experience.
Mhm.
And like you've only gone camping with me
Yeah.
once for one night, and we did go do fun stuff, and we had
Yeah.
a good time, and there were our good memories from that.
Yes.
Even though you didn't get to sleep that night, we talked about it. But
Countless times.
but the thing about it is like you get to experience things a different way. And so like I would love to go and like to the Blue Ridge Parkway
Mhm.
and be able to drive the whole Blue Ridge Parkway and then just like camp along the way because it would be very expensive to stay in hotels and things.
Yes.
It can be done, but it would be much more expensive.
Mhm.
It would be a great trip to be able to go do that. I can't imagine the overload of things that would come out of a trip like that. Or if you took a week
Yeah.
and you went and you stayed at like maybe a new state park every other day.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Like you wouldn't be able to have a podcast to
Yeah.
talk about it. And when I
It'd
told
have to
you
be series. Like, all right, this is for this state park. This is for this one, and
yeah, and like I told you when I got back, I was like, we almost just need to pull the microphones out now
yeah.
and just have a podcast because I'm so ready to tell you like all these things. Now,
Mhm.
I was also tired, so we didn't do
Yes.
that. But I can see the benefit in doing
Yeah.
that. It'd have been great. I think more people that do the full-time RVing thing, and especially the ones that are like not just living in an RV but traveling and
Yeah.
experiencing, I think they should do podcasts
Yeah.
where they can really go into depth on their stuff because they can't even go as in depth in the short videos they make a lot of times
Yeah.
as you would like. And so to be able just to sit down and talk about like, well, this was my experience at the Grand Canyon or whatever
Mhm.
would be really insightful and just interesting to listen to.
Mhm. Well, and it'd be helpful for other people who are wanting to go visit those locations
Mm-hmm.
because you know what to expect. And like, I don't know about everyone else, but we really like to know what to expect going into it.
Yeah.
Like where we're going to park, what's the parking situation like, are we expected to check in, those
Some
kind of
people
things.
don't have
Like,
nerves about that. That stuff makes me super nervous.
yeah, I'm, if left alone, I'm chill about that kind of stuff normally for the most part. But I like to have information still.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, all right, well, like this is where we park. I like to know stuff.
Yeah. I will say the hard part for me on doing stuff like this is like not allowing it to become the focus of your life.
Yeah.
And not about it to become the first thing because it would, like, if left to my own devices and if I could just,
You would make this
that would be my thing. Is
a
like I would
thing.
love to be just the person who travels constantly
Mhm.
and sees new things and talks about them and tells other people about it. But the truth of the matter is we have far more important things to talk
Yes.
about and tell people about. And so
Mhm.
as fun as it is to have this conversation, it's also important to realize that like there are greater things. It's the important part of this isn't the adventure, but the opportunity that I had to just connect with my son on a real level.
Mhm.
And I could go and have all the greatest experiences with him and even be connected with him maybe as a person.
Mhm.
But the truth of the matter is that faith is far more important.
Yes.
And you're not going to be able to replace what you can teach through faith in trips and things like
Mhm.
that. Like, you might be able to raise a good person doing those kind of things and stuff like that, but the faith is so much more important. And no matter trips we're going to go on, no matter how much we're going to see, it's never going to save us.
Mhm.
We need Jesus, and we're never going to be satisfied. That's my last
Yeah.
point I'll make. I know how you say what you're wanting to, but the Bible's clear that it says that the eye keeps seeing and is never satisfied, and I
Mhm.
can 100% fall into that. You look forward to the trip. The trip's going to be great. You're looking forward to seeing, the Twin Arches or the Rocky Mountains, Pikes Peak, all these things, and they're great to see, but as soon as you finish seeing it, you're just on to see the next thing.
Mhm.
And so you're never going to be content in that. And the only way that I think we can find true contentment is with God, because yes, we're constantly just praying and seeking after God and desiring
Mhm.
more of God, but you're still finding contentment throughout the whole thing. And it's a continued journey. It's not the next thing, it's the one thing.
Yeah.
God's the one thing. It's not the next touch. Some people
Mhm.
get stuck on the next touch from God,
Yep.
and that's not what it should be. It should just be about being in connection and communion
Mhm.
with God.
Well, and I think what's great about this trip and stuff is you still had your Bible with you, and in this trip you were still showing your son a deeper relationship between you and God than
Yeah.
he gets to see on a normal basis.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times those kind of things happen when he's sleeping or when he's quiet doing something else, like, because it allows you to have a little bit more focus time. This, it forces you into having that open, visible time
Yeah.
of you working on your relationship with God in his presence, having him see you doing these things. So I think that's a really great aspect of things like this. But when we are doing trips in general, a lot of times we are tying it back to God the whole time.
Yeah. Well, he even said the one thing that I thought was so funny is he used to ask you why the mushrooms were there, and you're like, "Well, God put them there." And so then
Mm-hmm.
I was pointing different mushrooms out to him, and he's like, "God put those there." And I was like, "You're right, buddy. He did put those there." This is one of those things that you see click.
Yeah.
And we made an effort to. We still prayed before we went to bed.
Mm-hmm.
We still read our Bible before we went to bed, and we
Mm-hmm.
still prayed before all of our meals. I think it's so important to take a break.
Yeah.
You need breaks in life. You need rest in life. But what you
Mm-hmm.
don't need rest from is God. You
Yeah.
still need to pray. Even when you're on vacation, you need to pray. You need to
Yeah.
read your Bible. You need to do those things because they're what's important.
You
It can
wouldn't
be,
take a break from your relationship.
yeah,
Like,
right.
we still had communication during this time.
Yeah.
So why would it be any different with God?
Hmm.
We're in a relationship with him. So to continue that communication during this time is essential.
Yeah. And you're going to find what you need more in that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you rest in God, like we talked about in previous episodes of the
Yep.
podcast, then you're going to be more rested than you would be if you just rested in
Mm-hmm.
the world. And I don't just mean in sin, but even in entertainment and
Yep.
stuff like that, that may not be inherently sinful,
Mm-hmm.
but it may not be good for you.
Yeah.
And everything of God is good for
Mm-hmm.
you. It's the best thing for you. If you think about, like, if God is health food,
Mm-hmm.
the things of the world are junk food. It's going to make
Exactly.
you feel lethargic. It's going to make you tired. It's going to make you burn out.
Mm.
But if you're with God, you're going to feel energized. You're going to feel full. And you need that even
Refreshed
when you're on
and mm-hmm.
vacation. You need that time with God. It's good to get a break. It's good to get a break from doing these
Yeah.
podcasts, right? Like, praise God, I was ahead on the podcast. I recorded another one before this episode. If you watch all the podcasts, then you would know that I'm in the same clothes I was in of the next episode of the More God Less Me podcast. But the reason for that is I decided to record two tonight because I had the time, I had the energy from
Mm-hmm.
resting. But I didn't spend this weekend doing the podcast stuff.
Yeah.
Instead, I spent it just enjoying my time. And what it was enjoying my time in nature,
Yeah.
in what God created. I
Mm-hmm.
don't get all weird. I started listening to another podcast that I believe the host of it's Christian, but then obviously, like, he's dealing in adventure type
Mm-hmm.
people. And so, like, this lady he had on there was as granola as they can come. And it's no offense to her, but she was just saying things about, like, energy and, even when you're traveling,
Mm-hmm.
you can feel the energy of your friends who are, continents away. And I'm like, no, I can't. Maybe my receptor's broken. I don't know. But I don't live that way. And people talk about, like, all this weird stuff, but it's like, the reason people find solace in nature is because God is in nature.
Yes.
Now, you're going to have a better relationship with God, not trying to find him in nature, but finding him in his word, in prayer, and in
Mm-hmm.
church, right?
Yeah.
Where you're getting pointed to God. but nature still holds the beauty of God. It's the imprint of God in his creation.
Yeah.
Just as God, we're a reflection of God, and we were made in the image of God, just like what you create. Your house is a reflection of you. What you curate, what you like. If you're an artist, what you draw is a reflection of who you are.
Yep.
The nature we see around us are reflections of who God is. The other thing that's amazing about nature, and I just want to throw this tidbit in there, is that if you look at nature, what we see right now are the results of the earth-destroying flood, right?
Yep.
It's amazing to think about it. What we see right now is after the flood of Noah's day. So in destruction, God created beauty. The reason that we have, if you look up answers in Genesis, you can learn a lot about that debunks a lot of what you were taught in school about science and shows you a biblical answer. And it's all about your starting place. When you start in the Bible, you reach different conclusions about how our world got to be what it is.
Yep.
But when you look at the flood account, it was a destroying thing. It says that the water burst forth, that there was all this water, and obviously it had to go somewhere.
Yep.
And so that's why we have all these archaeological digs. There are sea creatures on mountains in Wyoming and all this stuff. It's because of what God did. And in destruction, God created what we count as beautiful. That's an amazing thing to think about. And the other thing of that is that, if you think about the biggest things you're seeing, I'm seeing these giant trees, and yet my son is stopping to let a millipede cross in front of us. God took the same amount of forethought with that little bug as he did that giant tree.
Yep.
He created both of these things, big issues, big things, little things. God cares about them all.
Yep.
God created them all. And it's just amazing to look at.
And it's so easy in life to forget about the small things are still important to God. Because a lot of times we go about our lives and we're like, oh no, the car broke down. Let me step on the sand.
Yeah.
But God cares about it all.
Yeah. As we wrap this up, I think it's interesting, because I wanted to make that point to point back to God in this podcast, because I think it's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And you can have all the fun on a trip, and you can do fun things that aren't, it's hard to say that aren't God focused, but it's like, you can do things that you find
focused?
yeah, like you can go on a hike, you can go and stay somewhere, you can even go to a city and enjoy a city, and you can look for God in those things.
Yeah.
Find God in everything. People see the devil around every corner. The washing machine breaks, the car breaks down, I didn't wake up on time for work, it was the devil, it was the devil, it was the devil. But we rarely see God around every corner. We need to switch our perspective and realize that God is in far more places than the devil is.
Yeah.
Also, and just on that side note, the devil is not omnipresent. He cannot be everywhere at once. His demons may be places doing things and tempting you, but he cannot be but in one place at one time. But God is omnipresent. He is everywhere, and you can find God in any place, anytime, anywhere.
Any situation.
And you can share
no
God
matter
in
what.
that very same way. And so it's just amazing to be able to think about those things when you're on your trips, when you're on your vacation, when you're just enjoying life. Thank God for it. The thing about it is I had a great weekend this weekend, and the Bible says that all good and perfect things come from God.
Yep.
On the just and the unjust, he lets it rain, right? It's a blessing, and we need to be thankful for it. And I mentioned the rain. We look at rain as a hindrance, as an annoyance, as something that we don't want. But what we have to realize is that rain provides us with the food that we eat, with the nutrients that we need. It's what makes plants to grow. It's what keeps our world revolving and what we need to survive. And it meant even more back there in biblical days. So when God said, I send the rain on the just and the unjust, to people who were growing agriculture, when they were growing their crops, that was a mind-boggling thing. God is blessing us with what we need to survive, and also blessing the bad people in the same way, because God loves all people equally, even when they don't know him. God's amazing.
And even through our time with starting our garden and stuff, we've realized we've learned to love the rain more and more.
Yeah.
Because it does provide us with such wonderful food.
Rain is absolutely amazing, because when the rain comes, the crops grow dramatically.
Oh my
after.
goodness.
Like you can leave in the morning, look at your plants, leave, it rains that day, you come home in the afternoon, it stopped raining, and stuff is taller.
So
you can wait
of
days. You can wait days though, where it's not rained and nothing looks different, and then it rains and it looks completely different. Like it's amazing.
But speaking of all that, yesterday morning, it had rained some and everything. I went outside. I looked at the ground where I had planted seeds. Nothing. Maybe a couple seeds were starting to sprout just a little bit. Like I could see like the bean got pushed up a little bit and I had to recover it. But you come home from work and you're like, you've got 6-inch beans out there. They're huge. I'm like, no, 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 no. That was not like that this morning. There was nothing popped up. He's like, well, maybe it's a weed. No. God provided the rain with all the exact nutrients it needed to have that being burst forth
Mm-hmm.
and have its true leaves in a couple hours rather than days.
It's like sometimes we talk about like God send the rain, and talking about like spiritual rain, like the Holy Spirit,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And I think it can produce the same thing in your life.
Yeah.
Like when God's Spirit rains upon you, when the river of flowing water, all those
Mm-hmm.
things, that water has so much power in it, so much nutrients in it. The Holy Spirit has so much in that, and it
Yep.
will transform your life in an instant, just like the rain can transform a plant in an instant. It's amazing what God has done, how He's created all things to work together,
Mm-hmm.
and just how it is a blessing to watch and to take place.
Yep.
But we've gone about to an hour, and so
Yeah.
I don't want to accidentally jump into another thing that's going to push us over.
So come back next week and find out what we talk about.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get back on like an actual teaching episode,
Yeah.
maybe, because we've done a lot of just like talking about random stuff.
Yeah.
But we hope that you guys liked this episode. If you did, please like, comment, subscribe, all those good things on this channel. Check out the other channel that's
Mhm.
linked in the description. We would love to hear from you. If you've got things you would like to hear us talk about, we have a wide array of things that we're interested in,
Mhm.
topics that we'd love to discuss, things that we've somehow become knowledgeable about for no reason, but we'd love to talk to you about them. So if there's anything you want us to talk about, anything you'd like to know about us, let us know
Yeah.
in an email. You can send an email to moregodlessme@gmail.com. We'd love to hear
You
from
can
you.
comment. However, just let us know. We want to hear from you. But that is all for this week.
Yep.
I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and be sure to come back on Monday for the More God Less Me podcast, featuring Justin in this outfit. And yeah, God bless.
God bless.